This is going to get a little hairy, but we are going to build our predictive regression model. So we have the regression analysis that you guys just did. This looks wonderful, and we have the intercept, which is a baseline value, and this will kind of make sense as we build this model. And then there's some coefficients for sex, age, insurance, employment, rural, urban, and then rent or own. And so the way I digitized these numbers was different than how I did it in class. I have 0 being infected and 1 being safe. And so you'll want to be aware of how you digitize the values. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a prediction, and closer to 0 means the more likely you are that you're infected because of how we coded zeros and ones over here. So if infected Y, then we're going to call it a 0. That means the closer to 0 we are with this, the higher the likelihood that you'll be infected. So we're going to start with our baseline. So there's a 0.28 value. 0.28. So that's closer to 0 than it is to 1, so more likely that you're going to be infected just overall. We know that only 1/3 of the population is infected, but there's a lot of interconnected math going on, so that 0.28 on its own is kind of meaningless. And what we're going to do is we're going to take we're going to populate a bunch of zeros here, and we're going to take sex times the coefficient for sex, and we're going to drag that formula down so you can see that rent or own is correlated to, or is multiplied against, its coefficient down here. And we're going to take the intercept and we're going to add it to the sum of column n. And so what happens is if it's a man, we expect this number to increase because men are less likely to be infected, so 0.39. If they're 50 years old, this is not our 1 or 0, this is an actual age for this one. It impacts it. If they're insured or not insured, then you see it gets a lot closer to 0. So not having insurance is coded as a 1. And so forth. So you can see the probability that someone is safe. This person is extremely safe versus someone who has these characteristics is close to being infected. Actually, yeah. So you can play around with this and get it. That looks very close to a guaranteed zombie. So that is your predictive regression model.